Welcome to the Can't Stop the Growth podcast, the home service podcast dedicated to personal and leadership development. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and this week I am joined by a new guest. If you're ready to grow as a leader, you've come to the right place. Let's jump in. Hello and welcome to another episode of Can't Stop the Growth. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and today we have a good friend of mine from the East Coast on the podcast to talk all things leadership and running a very, very successful company up there in New Jersey. Without any further ado, would like to welcome to the podcast Rich Bogda, owner of Service Professionals. Welcome to the podcast, Rich. How's it going?
Doing great, Chad. How you doing?
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for taking a little bit of time out of your busy day. Rich, why don't we first start off by giving the listeners a little bit of background on you, kind of how you got into the trades, and then kind of a little bit about Service Professionals as you guys sit there here in 2022.
Yeah, nothing sexy about jumping into the trades or this business. I happened to be working for my dad years ago. And a person whose business we were working at asked me if I wanted a real job. And, what do I say? How much does it pay? Right. And paid about $3 more an hour than my dad was paying me. So at $6 an hour, I jumped in and then I asked him what I actually had to do. We were going to put boilers in the Northeast. They're pretty common. And that's how I got started in the plumbing field, and I actually fell in love with it as soon as I started doing it and became a passion. And it's crazy, but I've been at it 35 years now.
That's awesome.
And then with respects to the company, started the company back in 1994. We started as a plumbing, heating, and air conditioning company. Didn't know what we didn't know. So the first 10 years are usually painful. Was lucky enough in 2006 to join Nexstar. That really was the game changer for us. And then we just started to scale. And during that time, we've had a couple hiccups along the road, but today, we're doing pretty good. We finished last year at 14 million, 80 employees. We have an acquisition about to take place in the next few weeks. With that acquisition, should get us right around 20 this year. And, just looking to, there's a lot of stuff that fills in the voids in between that, but just, looking to scale the company and still trying to do it on my own without too much of the buzz of the acquisition stuff or the private equity, but just really enjoy what I do.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. A lot to unpack there, and I think a lot of items that seems are fairly common things that our listeners are going through as well. So I guess first off, obviously you made kind of that transition from kind of the field or, a technician, growing up and learning the trade to owning a business. What were some of those things that you had to either change your mindset on or, have really, maybe battled as far as making that transition?
Yeah. And some people seem to make it seem easy. For me, it was tough. I was exposed early to some really cool stuff. So I did my first Frank Blau seminar in probably like 1995, right after I joined. And there was this guy, Maurice Mayo, back in the day, who I went out to see his operation in San Diego. And I was inspired to do it the right way. We have a Nexstar member here who's one of the founders. And I met Dan in 1996. And so I had all these little things like pushing me to go in this right direction or think about the business differently. Back in the 90s, it was, ripped jeans. There was no structure. When Dan Weltman had box trucks with white shirts and, these guys they were dressed to the nines. I was inspired by that. And, I was a slow go. I think money was a challenge. Um, but, going through the process, you just got to be, you always say I'm like the most perseverant person in the world, right? Like I've had so many ups and downs during the years, and you just got to stay the course and know what it's not a vision, but it's these different milestones that you have to hit along the way, and always stay true to what you want to be. And I've done that over all the years. I have amazing staff with me, who've been through a lot of the trials and tribulations. Some people that have been with me 15, almost 20 years. And, it's a lot of fun. And it's even with the challenges you have, the lessons learned allow that to be trickled down to the rest of the team. And, I don't know where you could do it a little bit better or easier, but over all those years, I learned so much, and now I find myself being more of a coach to other people on how to get through that, whether it's for my team as I'm bringing up new leaders or for other younger Nexstar people.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I've always admired about you, probably never told you, but I've always enjoyed your perspective, and just so happens that you sent me a book here that arrived a couple of days back. But you seem to be one that is not afraid to reach out for help, and one that hey, I don't know everything, and surely someone else out there has the answer. And tell me a little bit about kind of the mindset that you've taken into your education and your learning, and trying to better, I guess, yourself and the business as well. Tell me a little bit about that, and the impact that you think it's had on the business as a whole.
I'm very much about the knowledge of this whole thing. And I belong, not only am I a Nexstar member, but also I belong to Strategic Coach. I'm in a leadership group, and I feel like, and it's kind of cliche, right? If you're not growing, you're dying. And I'm 54 years old, and I want to learn more today than I did 25 years ago. And it's just a quest, right? Like I read tons of books, not as many as you, I don't think, but I love what it does for me, because you're learning it from the lens of teaching it, right? Like, how do I get to impact other people with the information that I've learned? And I think that is what's super powerful. And I've never been like, I don't need to know everything, right? Like, I just need to know what phone number I need to dial to get there. And I have a couple key mentors. I have a PBOD. I have a stream team. Like, I have all these people. And I always put myself out there, right? Like, we were at the Rhino event together, and like I didn't know a lot of people there, but I'm always looking to find what's that little nugget I'm going to get, because those nuggets that you get are powerful when you come and bring them back into your company, or how you train somebody else. So and on top of it, we do EOS well. So like, it's always about trying to make us better than we were yesterday. That's kind of my thing with my team. We just need to be 1% better tomorrow than we were today, and we'll do magnificent stuff at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that I've seen in this industry is something that holds people back sometimes, is, their unwillingness to change, or, unwillingness to do something maybe just a little bit different, because it feels uncomfortable.
Right.
How do you help your team? Because change is never easy for anybody, and in leadership we find ourselves initiating a lot of change. What do you do, or what are some things that you could share with the listeners that you do, to help kind of soften the blow, I guess, if you will, of change, and improvement, and getting 1% better means that you can't do things you did yesterday. You got to do them maybe a little bit different, or tackle that. How do you kind of approach that with your team?
Well, I first stopped coming back from Nexstar events with the list of things that we were going to change.
It's so much fun, though.
It always, it's like, here we go. I when I go out to an event now, or I'm reading a book or whatever, I try not to find the 10 things that are going to help us. It's just the one, right? And I think it's not overwhelming then when you do it that way. I think the one other thing is that my team trusts me, right? So like when I am going to make a change, I don't make a ton of them, right? I just try to be super intentional at the one that's going to actually deliver us results. And even with it, like, you know, when I came to everybody and wanted to implement EOS, right? Like that was, you know, they kind of fought me on that initially. And you know, it's structure, it's accountability, it's all this stuff. And now it's like, you know, to a point where, you know, they get mad at me if I'm not freaking in the meeting at 1 minute before the you know, 1 minute beforehand, right? And you know, and I love that, right? Because now they take ownership. It happens when I'm not here, and you know, we move a lot of rocks forward because everybody's so passionate about it. And I think that's that trust, right? Like even though they might, you know, give me a little bit of a hard time about doing something differently, they always trust the process, and I think that's what's comforting for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think structure and accountability, while you know, as you said, when you first introduce it, no one likes that.
Right.
Heck, you know, accountability sucks. You know, hey, shoot, someone's going to call me out on this if I don't
Right.
do it. But you know, having that trust and creating that with your team, I think is something that we all can, you know, lean into as we're leading people forward, no doubt. Obviously, you've done a fantastic job of scaling the company. You know, as you said, hopefully hit 20 million this year, which is no small feat in its own. What have you done to kind of develop your leadership team? You mentioned you've had a lot of people that have kind of been through thick and thin with you and seen the ups and downs, and you know, been there since the beginning. What have you done to develop them so that they're ready for, you know, leading a company that's, you know, double the size it was 3 years ago?
You know, I think it's you know, when you get into trust and inspire, I really believe when I look back at it, one of the sections of the book is all about modeling, right? And it's your people seeing how you respond and behave to circumstances, especially tougher ones. But also it's that accountability, right? Like I've struggled with accountability over the years. I'm much better today than I was, you know, 5, 10 years ago. But and it's really when you realize that the more accountable I hold you will translate to more success that you'll have, right? And when, you know, when we talk to our team about that, you know, when you're doing one-on-ones or whatever, like you know, they really just have to understand that as long as our focus is on helping people become better people, right, the rest of it will all kind of just come into play, right? And that's how I look at it, right? The KPIs will all work out and all the stuff will work out, but right, like, you know, in our company, remarkable is our keyword, right? So we want to deliver remarkable every day. And you know what? If you deliver remarkable every day, all the numbers should ultimately shake out, right? And if it doesn't, you know, it's okay, right? We'll figure out how to help you get there. And you know, it's about our leadership team is about lifting other people. We love making sure that people are growing, but it's also, Chad, you know, it's like when somebody buys a house or buys a new car, or has a baby or gets married, right? Those are rewarding things for us as business owners, right? Or as leaders, right? It's not about the check. It's about having an impact in somebody else's life. Like that guy did the day I accepted that job. Like he put me on this trajectory from making $6 an hour to running this $20 million company, of which, you know, I have no idea where it's going to go. The way things scale today, and following people that are doing it better than I am, you know, who knows what you can build. But the everybody on my team knows that there's those opportunities in the growth are there for them. And, you know, I think that's it in itself, right? And that's kind of modeling, right? That's kind of showing people the way.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. One of our values here at Peterman is lead ourselves. And to me, that is the quintessential model that you're going to set up. The one thing that really struck a chord with me was, those that follow you are going to watch how you react in tough situations, or situations where we're not sure what the right answer is, but heck, we're going to figure it out. And you know to me, that's one of the most fun things to do,
Right.
because it really shows the belief that you have in yourself, to figure it out. And if you're intentional about, there is no failing of this. Where as long as we have that focus of lifting up people, everything else will take care of itself,
Right.
because we're all going to get better and continue to move forward.
For sure. And I saw, I mean, the cool thing is when I was at your place back in whatever February, you can feel that, right? Like your team's doing a walk around with us and taking us over to the school. And, and that's the beauty of it, right? Like when the thing has its own life without you being in it, right? I think that's the ultimate power, right? And I think that's what why today's companies are going to be different than the ones you might have seen 20 years ago that were super successful. And it's going to be that command control to trust and inspire. Like I can see that in your company, right? You're a trusting leader. People are inspired to work by you, with you. And I shoot for that same thing. And then our teams are going to just run with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in the book that he's referencing is the book that he sent over to me. But we were talking a little bit before we got started here about that shift in what what workers of today are wanting. And they aren't wanting potentially what was offered, you know 10, 20 years ago. What are some of the things that you've done to kind of I guess meet today's worker, where they are, and maybe not as we've always done it, but hey, identifying, hey, this is what they're looking for, this is what they want. What are some of the things that you guys are doing internally that's helping you meet that demand?
I think one of the unique things, and I'm sure there's tons of companies that do it, but I work with a leadership coach. We talk about gratitude. One of our core values is going big, right? Which is beginning your day in gratitude, right? Like trying to get my team to understand what being in gratitude is, not just being grateful. And in that, we've since the first of the year really been trying to get people involved in like some give back stuff, right? Like it's not about making a check and donations, but how do we have an outward mindset towards our community or to our customers? And we've done some really cool things where the technicians are in homes and finding. The first kid was a kid who had 13 years old. Anderson has cancer. Parents are struggling with it. And my technician just reached out to me and like, what could we do for these people? He's like, I'd be willing to donate my time if there was something we could do to get him a better price on a water heater. The water heater was like 13 years old. And, my wife is actually working in the company a little bit to help with this outward initiative that we're doing. So she's like, well, what else might the kid be interested in? So we could give the kid something too, because that'll help the parents. But what about the kid? So Matt finds out that the kid loves Star Wars and he happens to absolutely love Legos. So, a bunch of people without us even asking chipped in some money. We bought him these two monster Star Wars ships. And it was pretty cool because when you go to a Lego store like that, they give you this big yellow bag, and we got everybody in the office to sign it. And we gave him a little service professional swag. So we gave him one of our cool hats and a Yeti and then some like treats and stuff. And we let the technician take it over to the customer's house, right? Give it to the son. And that's the impact I want to have on people, right? That's what your thought is, right? How am I going to help somebody else today? right? Because it'll come back to you tenfold ultimately. And so we've been doing that stuff, and it's, the way we're trying to shape the thought process of everybody here. We had a couple incidents last week when I was away where, a lady lost her grandson. So sent flowers to her house that day. And we had another person who, she has cancer, got her and her husband a gift certificate to a restaurant, and we have the employee actually, they initiated it. They get the benefit of bringing it over to the customer and dropping it off. And what's funny is, like, I think when you have that kind of impact on somebody, that person will never, ever leave my company. And, and I think that our retention with the people that we have just kind of speaks for itself. And I think it's only going to get better moving forward, because that's what I need to focus on, right? I've tried the recruiting people, right? Like, I'm just going to put my energy into creating an environment that nobody wants to leave.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're so spot on with that. We actually rolled out last week at our all company meeting. We rolled out where each employee gets 8 hours of PTO that they can use to volunteer or assist a nonprofit that they are passionate about. So, if it's veterans, if it's homeless, if it's, whatever it may be, they get those 8 hours of PTO to utilize and to go do that, which I'm super excited about. I'm pumped to see some of the stories that we get back, and to your point, just showing people that you care. It's not about making an extra buck. That support and that care, the money it'll take care of itself.
I really do think so, and I'm stealing that idea. I love that. Giving
we took it from somebody. We took it from somebody else. Yeah. So no worries. I'll let them know.
In a true next star fashion, right?
Yeah, that it's passed down somewhere. Yeah, I think that both those stories are just tremendous, and I think for listeners out there is a ton of opportunity. I know we approached our supplier a while back and basically said, hey, will you give us one system as part of our deal, one system a quarter that we can just like give to somebody. And it was, hey, comfort advisors, when you're out there in the home, you run into a situation, or service guys, and we have someone in need, know that we have this program and that we can pull the trigger on it so that it's available. Which has been a good benefit, but there's a ton of stuff out there that can be done. We donate to, it's a food pantry, but we said, we went over there to present them something, and we said, what is it that we could help with? And they're like, to tell you the truth, like, we need something to like carry all of this stuff from the store to our place. And we're like, well, we have empty box trucks, like a lot of them. Maybe we could help out with that. So I think we started meeting them like once a month, and we meet them over at the, wherever they pick up all their food and bring it to their locations so they can package it up and do different stuff like that. Just silly stuff that you wouldn't, not that big of a deal, but it goes a long way in helping somebody.
Right. And sometimes you just need to ask.
Yeah.
Just ask people, what can I help you with? Yeah.
Exactly. No, that's awesome. Great advice there. I think for anybody running any type of company, today, more than ever, I think our people want to be involved with a company that has a purpose behind what they do. Not just, oh, well, this company, again, like you said, they pay my paycheck on Friday. Right. Well, that's great. But you can go anywhere and do that. And people of today want to go somewhere where they can really connect with, what it is that company is all about.
It really is. It does take you back to like, how do you make people feel at the end of the day, right? So even when you're doing performance coaching with one of your team members, right? Like when they're not hitting where they're supposed to be, how do you feel about that? Mm-hmm. Right. So if you were to get to that next level up, or you were able to improve on these 2 KPIs, like how would you feel about that? Right. And getting them to think about it that way. And again, once I make them feel good, right, they'll never want to feel like leaving.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Yeah, how would you feel if we am not just like, well, I need to do this because it's my job. No, like how would you if we could help you improve, even if it's related to metrics, if we could help you improve your conversion rate, how would that make you feel?
How
Well,
would that be?
I guess that'd be really cool.
Right.
Okay, well, let's dig in and figure out how to do that. Not necessarily, hey, we need to improve your conversion rate because, well, that's what the metrics say.
Right.
No, like what if that ended up in a positive result for everybody? You mentioned in one of the, I kind of want to hit on this topic here because I think it's so important. You've mentioned one-on-ones a couple of times. How do you guys use one-on-ones there to help kind of coach and develop your team?
So it's something that we hadn't in the past done well. And it's still a work in progress, but it really just comes down to the mindset. How are we helping people get to their next level, right? Like what is their next level want? And like even, you know, what are their goals, right? What are their aspirations in life, right? Because if you don't know them, like how can you tie any performance to who they are and what they want? And you know, that I think is the key, right? So like, and I've never done structured one-on-ones like as a leader. Like I'm more of a, hey, I'm going to come pop in Chad's office and we're just going to have a conversation. And I feel like I know everybody in my company pretty well. I have no, I'll be down in the warehouse talking to somebody about, how things going and, getting to know them a little bit better. But I think doing the more intentional one-on-ones, gives you a better environment and making them, the first go around gets a little scary, or the first time you do one with somebody, they're scared because they think they're going to be like, tortured or whatever worse fear that they possibly have. And then you have the one-on-one with them and you just, hey, what's good in your life? Hey, well, we have in strategic coach, we have this great question that we use. So what has to happen, if we're sitting here a year from now, and what has to happen for you to feel like you made meaningful progress during the year, right? Because then it helps set me up what this guy wants out of his life over the next 12 months. And then I could kind of guide the plan for where they are. We use that question even in interviews, right? Because it's a pretty powerful question.
Yeah, I like
So,
that.
and then it just comes down to the accountability piece, right? And then making accountability not so scary, right?
Yeah.
The more I hold you accountable, the more successful you'll be. And then once they understand that I have their best interest at hand, it's powerful. Like our HVAC team, what did was 100% over budget last month, right? And it's just us holding them accountable and them doing what they're supposed to do better than we ever thought they could.
That's awesome. We'll talk after about a few tips for that on the 100% over budget. That's always a really good thing for sure, especially in March.
For sure. Yeah.
So yeah, you'll take that. But one of the things I want to jump in, you mentioned early on, and we kind of alluded to it a little bit, but I know that this topic is one that I talk a lot with people acquisitions. So, obviously, as a business owner, you can grow it organically. Acquisitions are also a strategy. Tell me a little bit about kind of that strategy, how it came to be, kind of how you're working it, just, kind of high level overview of what you're doing there.
Yeah, it's been something I've been doing for a long time, but most of the ones I did were usually I have a good relationship with a lot of people. So I was more the exit strategy for the one-man plumbing, heating, air conditioning guy. So you really just pick up their customer list and, kind of give them an exit, give them a little bit of cash. And, it's something I'm kind of passionate about now. I mean, we haven't really done, in the landscape of today and what's going on, I haven't done any major ones, but for me, it's fun. I love the interaction with the owners. I love acquiring them. So we're probably at like 12 or 13. We have one coming up that takes us into different comfort level, because all the other ones have been like, two, three, four, six, $700,000 companies. This one's going to be 2.3 million, 9 employees coming over. So we're going to learn a lot of stuff in this one. But I kind of, aspire, like my goal for this year is to be able to be at a place where I could put a $5 million company in, plugging it in, opening up a different market, kind of following the trend like you and, talking to Aaron at Eco, trying to have those other locations set up and that being part of the growth strategy to scale it. You're going to kind of follow that. I like the acquisition thing as opposed to organically, but I also know a few people that are doing it organically. But going out, touching people, talking to your vendors, finding the guys that are, at that 60-year-old mark that are tired. We just did one in September where, the COVID equipment restrictions, can't find good help. It puts a pain on the company. We picked up an amazing technician and the owner came on as a sales guy, right? So that's such awesome stuff, because not only am I picking up the customer base, but what would it be to pick up an awesome technician? He's one of the reasons why we're doing so well in March. And to pick up an owner who loves to just coach my sales guys. He is a true seasoned professional, and to help them become better. And then he likes to do the, rooftop here, some ductless stuff. He likes his niche stuff, doesn't want to work too hard. So it works out perfect for everybody. But I think that this one we're going to close on in May. I think it's going to help us really step up our game and, be able to handle a much bigger one moving forward. And I think there's a lot of opportunities out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one thing that I do, Chad, that's kind of unique is I've never bought a company, and it drives some people crazy. I've never bought a company that I've borrowed money to do. Every single one, I give them some money down and I just have the owner hold the paper. It's the only way, right?
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with those guys, they don't really have any other exit strategy. So, usually give them 25% down and just over, 2 to 3 years of terms.
Yep, absolutely. I think it's the reason I ask is I think it is definitely a strategy that given the climate with COVID, you have a lot of baby boomers that are, nearing the end of their careers and haven't really thought about, hey, what am I going to do with this thing? I don't want to work forever. And so I think that there's definitely some opportunity out there for people. We found a lot of success in the acquisition model and running that, which has been good. And I think to your point, acquisition, I feel like has such a negative connotation around it. But much like you said, we have had just some really great success stories. We did 2 last week that, really got some great people and people that were once we showed them what we had, you also get the stereotypes behind, why work at a small company? And I don't know if I'm about joining your big company. And then when you show them some of the benefits around what a big company could potentially offer, they're like, oh, well, yeah, that seems quite a bit better than what I had before. It's yeah, this is awesome. So there's and what I tell every potential seller that I talk to is, the ultimate goal is to create a win-win-win for, you to feel like you won, we to feel like we won, and then ultimately your employees and your customers feel like they won as well.
Yep.
They get someone who's going to take care of them, and your employees feel like, ooh, I've got a nice soft landing spot for the next step in my career.
Yeah, it's funny. In the last one that we did, the one technician that we got that was awesome, he was coming. We closed specifically on the day before he was coming back from his vacation, and he was coming in to give notice that morning because he wanted to go work for a bigger company. So when we tell him that we just bought them, he was just like, all right, cool. Right. And he absolutely, anytime he's in the building, he comes by and he thanks me every day. Just got him through some Next Star training, which he was just enamored by. and the opportunities you have here. Plus, we do full medical for our people. Like, he didn't have that before, and he didn't get sick or personal days. So like you get all these extra addeds. And I think guys that are in his position are almost scared of making the move to a bigger company. They're kind of intimidated by it. So it was kind of cool that he made the move. So
Yeah. Well, and I think too, the one thing that I think that we have as we grow our companies bigger and bigger is that, responsibility of, where do these people get that bad taste in their mouth about a big company? Well, it was probably from the 90s when
right,
there were a
exactly.
lot of
Right,
big companies that weren't necessarily real concerned about your growth as a technician, more
right.
so concerned about what your truck revenue was for the day.
Yep,
And so what we have to be, I think, aware of is that we have this stereotype that we need to overcome. Big is not always bad. It just means that we have a lot of people, and this is exactly what I told both groups of people is, yeah, we're bigger. Yeah, there's more people running around, but what that also is an environment where people are always looking to get better. There's a ton of support. You are not out on an island. Like, there's a lot of benefit to it.
right,
Does it have the same feel? Probably not.
right.
But at the same time, that feel it's neither better or worse. It's just different.
Yep, I agree.
For sure. So, well, I tell you what, as we kind of wrap up here, again, Rich, I really appreciate your time. Obviously, we've spent quite a bit of time together, and shared a Uber ride in Arizona. What's one thing that you'd like to leave the listeners with that, either over the years that you've really come to, maybe didn't believe at first, and then, oh my, look what I found, and that has really helped you out in your leadership journey?
That's a loaded question, I guess. Because there's so many different, it's kind of like talking about mentors, right? Like, you take, there's so many people at different stages of your life, and the same thing with leadership. And I think the thing that for me is not, as a leader, not to react at the information first given to me, right? I need to digest it before I form an opinion around it. And then, just trust the person has my best interest at hand, and then peel back where you're going, right? And, when I was younger, I was too aggressive, right? Like, we in my company I call it red arts when I'm reacting. It's not a good thing, right? And back to that, command and control. Like, you always felt like you had to solve a problem immediately, right? And that's not it, right? I need to pause. I need to ask very deliberate questions as to help them solve the problem without me, right? And it just takes a very calm thinking process, and it's a learned behavior, right? It's back to why I do all this self-help, is because every single day I want to be better than I was yesterday. And that people will get to watch me do it, and you'll actually see it happen here. And I'm not perfect at it, but I think as a leader, we just need to be aware of our actions, and we need to help people come up with solutions on their own, not just always giving them to them.
Oh, that's so perfect, and such a great, kind of leadership lesson. I think that a lot of us that are leaders, like you said, the urge is to fix things.
Right.
My wife tells me this a lot. I
Yep.
don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen.
Correct.
Well,
Yep.
but why do we fix it? It seems logical. But
I've crossed that journey a couple times.
yeah. But yeah, it is, as leaders, it's important not to want to dive in and try to fix every problem.
Right.
That is a recipe for not scaling a company, but rather, like you said, digest the information, trust that whoever's bringing it to you, even though it may seem kind of negative at first, or, maybe not great, or, hey, there's a lot better way to do this. It's, just understanding where they're coming from,
Right.
seeing their perspective. Why did they bring it like this? Or what are you thinking around this? Or how can I help? Or wherever that is. And, as leaders, it's our job to support people, not fix their problems.
Right.
And the more problems that they can fix themselves and or think about differently or whatever it may be, the better we become, kind of stealing that 1% better.
It allows them to grow for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Or else they're just going to rely on you every day to solve
Correct.
the problems, which is not a recipe for scaling a company like you're doing. So, Rich, again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the wisdom that you've shared on the podcast. I know listeners will get a ton of great information and great things that they can take back to their company and hopefully make better. So, as we wrap up, listeners, I think it's important, and Rich has brought out a number of things that we can do. In order to grow, sometimes it's important to slow down a bit. Sometimes it's important to listen. Sometimes it's important to digest that information and really take a step back as to find out who can help us and how we can help move others forward. As always, if you enjoyed the content and have a minute, please leave a review. Jared and I are on the review journey this year of trying to collect our 250 reviews. But until then, we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, I would greatly appreciate if you would rate the show or share it with someone who might enjoy it. As the name suggests, we are always looking to grow, so let me know in the comments what you thought and if there is anything you would like to hear on future episodes. Come back again soon, and always keep growing out there.